welcome back, SMITE fans, to the SPL Season 9. We're in day number 3 here, Mifflin, as we're looking to lock down the first week of Phase 1. 2 sets remain, and the one that we're about to watch is, well, the penultimate set, I guess is the official term for it, is the Dragons and the Titans.
Wait,
that's going to be fun for it. It's
isn't
Gore,
penultimate
Mifflin.
last?
No, penultimate is next to last.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. No, you don't have to Google it.
Penultimate.
I believe you.
Yeah, wait. Last, but one in a series of things, second last.
Huh. That's not ultimate anything. That's second.
Yes. Well, penultimate is like...
Understood. I didn't know that pen was a qualifier. Let's not debate
diction. It's not a debate. That's just what it is.
Yeah,
I don't know what the debate.
Stop arguing semantics with me.
Okay. Either way, we can look at the schedule for this week. Again, just 2 more sets to round us out. The Titans and the Dragons, they're going to be playing up here in just a few minutes. And then the Leviathans and the Warriors are going to close us out for the week. And then we'll get to see the prospect for where these teams sit going into week number 2. Again, Phase 1, I believe, relatively short. Most of these teams, I believe, only playing each other once throughout the duration of it. So this will be the only time that you get a chance to get that one up over them. Tiebreakers at that point are very easy to make, right? Hey, you went 1-1, that team went 1-1, cool, but you beat them, that's all that matters.
Head-to-heads.
We can move it forward. So that's going to be, well, just fun to watch as it goes along. Titans and Dragons. Now, it's just some history. The last time these 2 teams played was when November of last year in the Phase 3 playoffs. It was a 3-1 for that team right there. Your second place team from Worlds, the Tartarus Titans. Mifflin, not a lot changed about them going from last year to this year, except over there in the solo lane. They've now got someone outside of Benji playing with them.
But Benji's still playing with them, technically, because he is acting as their coach. But it is SOT from the Solar Scarabs now over to the Tartarus Titans. And SOT largely hailed, at least by me. I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
I think he is one of the most, if not the most mechanical player in the league, and will fit very well with the Tartarus Titans. Because for those of you who watched any interviews last year, you'll know that Benji is a pretty quiet guy. He was just there to hold down the lane and then rotate through and be a mechanical mastermind. SOT, well, he's a pretty quiet guy, going to do that exact same thing. So essentially a plug-and-play switch for the Tartarus Titans as far as I'm concerned. And
they have a type.
They certainly do.
They were like, man, we really like our solo laners to be quiet, really good mechanically, but like and get the job done.
And that's exactly what they got for themselves. I think that the Tartarus Titans probably going to play at the exact same level that you can expect of them. The growing pains won't quite be there, and if that's the case, the Tartarus Titans are a very scary team to play against. Second at Worlds for a reason.
It's going to be fun to watch layers as well on this squad. Picked up a kind of late addition for them. Scary D, now on the Solar Scarabs, was the jungler for the Tartarus Titans at the beginning of the year. Yeah, they just keep swapping them back and forth. We'll see whether or not, well, I guess it works out for them in the long run here. I think that, well, at least in the layers pickup, has benefited them pretty well. Solar Troll, as you had described, just an incredibly solid player all around. And Paul. Y'all know Paul. I mean, come on. Like, do I have to break it down for you?
Yeah, like a 35 KDA.
He's really good at SMITE.
Huge god pool, massive KDA, one of the most talented mid laners in the league. The only one who even approached Shinto in terms of fantasy scoring. So whoever was able to pick up Paul, probably pretty happy with that selection for themselves. Look, the Tartarus Titans are a squad that should be considered the favorites in this one.
Yes.
But I don't think completely out of control the Jade Dragons, even though the last time they did meet up, it was a 3-1 in favor of the red team.
And the Dragons looked pretty good last time around, so we'll see, I guess, how they can show up. We'll talk about them in just a second. The Titans, though, we got to sit down with them a little bit earlier this week and ask them about this matchup and how they felt.
The biggest focus for our team, the Tartarus Titans, we're just going to look to take it game by game and just improve and just try to get better every week. How we're going to handle the Jade Dragons playstyle, like every year, they usually are more early game centric. They got a new switch up, they got Pagon in mid, so we'll see how that goes. I think he fits their style a little bit more than Herwind did. I think Herwind was like a really good player, but he was more a traditional mid laner. They got used to playing with Twig, and Twig was kind of like a second jungler, and you see Pagon's whipping out all these assassins and like picks that can roam the map really well. So he's more reminiscent of Twig than Herwind. So I think it'll fit them better. Like even this week with the kickoff land, they're using Pagon a lot to roam from lane to lane to gank. So If we have a strong early game and we play well, we're just going to look to match their early game and beat them out early game, and then just have a strong late game and win team fights. I don't think there's really a big threat on any team. It's just like how we play. I feel like if we're playing confident and smart and just doing what we do best, we'll do well against any team. I expect that we're going to do very well.
Fair enough. Thumbs up, Aurora. All right.
Got a little bit of Dave there at the very end of the thumbs up for Aurora based on how they're thinking they're going to do Mifflin. Look, second place for a reason. That's exactly what you said. This is a team that is going to be formidable, a team that is a lot to offer to the league, and it's going to be fun to watch. Again, just the solo swap for them. I guess technically a coach swap as well. We'll see how that impacts them throughout the phase. But their opponents today are going to be the Jade Dragons. You can hear Aurora's talking about it, specifically having Pagon in fits them, in his opinion, a little bit better than Hurrywin. And from what we've seen so far, it's kind of, I guess, a toss-up. They got a 2-0 against the Scarabs. Maybe not the most finalizing depiction of what we can expect out of them, but it does seem to be a good start for the Dragons here.
Yeah, gotta think Aurora was like reading my notes, man. He really blew up my spot because I was going to talk about how Pagon is that person for this team that is going to fit their aggressive early game styling, and that he has an eclectic god pool that very much fits early game rotations, which is exactly where the Jade Dragons have flourished in the past. They're a team that is very willing to tell you, hey, if the game goes 30, we probably didn't do exactly what we wanted. Are they capable of playing the late game phase? Absolutely. They are an all-rounder team that is incredibly strong, but specialized towards the early. Pagon likely going to fit that style very, very well. And I'm just rehashing what Aurora said because he, again, blew up my spot. I'm pretty upset about it.
Yeah, he actually did legitimately come in here. It's wild.
Did you let him look at my laptop?
No, he came in just now through a time rift, took your notes from you, and then went back to record specifically that interview just to mess with you. No, yeah, you could see it here. A lot of Panda Cat highlights, and you'll notice something between every single one of them. Yeah, he's been playing like almost exclusively Uller. I think he played literally one Artemis game last week, and that's because they gave Pagon Uller. And even then, I wasn't really sure that he was going to give it up. He's just been loving this god. I asked Mike about it yesterday, and he said like he's even like having issues. Sometimes he'll be playing somebody else, and he'll be like, "Oh, hey, I've got wait, what? I don't have Axe. What's wrong here? Something's gone wrong. My Uller's bugged." And he's playing Rom. So either way, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, that's been like the consistent pick for them, and he's been performing on it. So it feels like there's something that either you ban away, or at least you know what your lane matchup's going to be.
Yeah, a lot of data on exactly one pick for Panda Cat. But speaking of the Jade Dragons as a whole, I think this is a team that is very good at the early portions of the season because of that aggressive styling. It's so much easier to lean towards aggression when everybody else is figuring out exactly how they want to approach the game. So I would say the Jade Dragons get like a team-wide buff in Phase 1. And,
well, we'll get to see that. I think you got to chase down, and if I remember correctly, like literally chase down
spoilers.
The Dragons player. We got Mifflin, you from time ago, I don't know, a while ago.
30 minutes.
Chasing 30 minutes? Really? Wow. 30 minutes ago, chasing down some Dragons players to see, I guess, their thoughts on this one, or whatever you asked.
All right, guys, I've gone rogue here with a guerrilla interview. I think Jordan is, for some reason, hanging out in the caster room with the Savage and Goremizer. I don't think he's got an official title. Jordan, come on, buddy. Let's do an interview, bud. Come on. I think we got some players in here. God, I love these. It's just you got to sneak up on them, you know. What were you doing in the caster room? Don't answer that. You don't have a mic. Let's see who's hiding around out here. You know what? I spotted a guy. He locked eyes with me. He's trying to run away. I think I see a Pagon. No, you better get back here, bud. I don't care where you're going. All right, let's talk. We can run and talk. Pagon, how do you feel about the bathroom quality here at hi-rez, man? Do you like it?
No, it's dirty.
You're sounding a lot like Layers right now. What's going on? You know what? Fine. I'll talk to somebody else who wants to talk to me. That is ridiculous. Fine, okay.
Yeah.
What is it true of the allegations that Pagon doesn't speak English?
I mean, he sort of just says like colors that he wants to go for in game. So like he says red or like blue or something like that, and that's basically all he knows.
Yeah, basic English from Pagon. Barbara, Mike, while we're on the conversation of just, I guess, literary mastery, who speaks the best English on the team?
Probably Alec.
Okay. Yeah. All right. How does that make you feel?
Look at that grin.
So nice. So nice.
Perfect.
There you have it. I would continue this interview, but I'm legitimately out of breath having to chase Pagon, so that's it.
You did one cycle.
Okay, don't blow up my
around
spot,
the
dude. I ran a lap around the building before that, okay?
Yeah, I actually do remember when you ran that 2 miles right prior, and you
Dude.
managed to nail it in 10 minutes. That's what's nuts
And
to
I
me.
fought a bear out
Yeah.
there. I didn't want to brag.
I remember, I was wondering where that new rug came from. I was just like, oh, okay, I guess Mifflin went out thrift shopping or something. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know if I gleaned any information there. Alec is really good, specifically. That's fine, okay, for those of you out there. Really good at English
And
or,
Pagon
or
isn't.
diction. Pagon knows colors very well.
Yeah.
So, that's, we'll get him a crayon box for Secret Santa. Is that what that means?
That's not how you can't say it because then that's not a secret Santa. That's simply just Santa.
Well, maybe it's still secret. He's not watching right now. Probably. Maybe he is.
Hopefully
I don't know. He's going to see himself just running away. We'll see what he ends up playing here. Yeah. It derailed me a little bit. My brain shattered. Sounded a little bit like layers there.
Dude,
like,
he
it
did.
was just so good.
I wasn't ready for that.
It was just, Mifflin, I love it when you do those. So far, the bans are Erlong Shen, Kamazot's Kepri. Jade Dragons are your first pick team. The Titans going for their final ban here. Artio, Kleena, and it's going to be the Gilgamesh taken off the board, presumably from Sam
Go
there.
forth, my children,
Tiamat
and take over
back
this
up
land.
at the top here for Pagon.
Yeah, surprised that Tiamat really is getting that priority. So you're not leaning into Pagon's wacky nature of going towards assassin mid laners or high mobility mid laners instead. Just an age-old classic that's going to scale very well come late game, plugs into the majority of drafts incredibly well as well. So the Titans not going to learn a whole lot about what the Jade Dragons are looking towards in the rest of their draft. Evaluating the bans, though, I like what the Jade Dragons have done. You've taken away one of Layers' best picks with the Erlong Shen. You remove some of that flex potential from Kamazot's, and a pick that has very quickly rose through the power rankings, Kepri, getting some respect from the Jade Dragons. Whereas the Titans, I would argue, have gone a little bit more standard in their bans. You take out the Gilgamesh, that's something that we're very used to seeing in the first phase of picks and bans, and Artio, one that has rose pretty quickly, but a little bit earlier on than what we've seen from Kepri. A god that dominates the soul lane.
I do really like how, because you say Tiamat, very well hides like what kind of strategies you could go for. She really is just like, okay, so that's mid.
There's a Tiamat.
And there's definitely going to be a team around her.
Yep.
We know that. That's the information you get from Tiamat. So well played by them. Aggressive duo lane from the Titans here, though. Atlas and Medusa, we've seen a lot of this. Aurora absolutely loved the Atlas last week to the point where I believe it had to get banned away from him to try and stop him from playing it. He just keeps going back to it, and honestly, it looked good.
Yeah, Atlas is just a very adaptable pick. If you are forced to play from behind in the lane, like you have to play that passive style, Atlas is a Guardian that doesn't necessarily need to get in that point-blank range. Just throw out the Astrolabe, clear the way from a range, Acid Spray. Similarly can do that, and you can play this lane safely if you so choose. It's not going to be a choice that the Titans make willfully, because that is a very high kill pressure lane as well. Don't need to sing the praises of Medusa, but I will. It's Lacerate and Viper Shot.
Yeah.
That's really all you need. Also, Acid Spray now the ability that has anti-heal on it, so you can apply that poke from a range. And then Atlas's ability to not only lock you down, but also close the gap with his dash that does deceptive damage. And if you are able to escape all of that, semi-global ultimate, just to finish off some of those kills. The Jade Dragon's going to play cautiously over there in the long lane, and still not showing too much with their draft. Uhl, that's going to Panda Cat. We saw every single highlight in the reel was Uhl Panda Cat. The Cabrakan, though, has some flex potential. Could go over towards the soul lane. We know Final K is very capable of this pick. Generally just holds its own in lane and then starts to rotate, utilizing that superior mobility that he gains from the additional movement speed in his first ability. But could also head over towards support and would be a very good setup tool for this Uhl. Essentially every single time he lands that stun, Uhl won't have to do it himself. He can just follow it up with a rain of arrows, bladed arrows, and damage from a range.
One of the most banned gods this year so far, Zeus, does make its way through. And so the top three for the Titans are maybe running a tierless. Atlas, I think, it is still kind of in the question mark zone, a few people who have been playing him. The Titans, as I mentioned earlier, one of the big proponents of that. But the Zeus comes in, Mifflin, and that feels like that at least against Tiamat, maybe is not going to find a lot of kills there, but a lot of damage throughout the game is going to be abundant.
Yeah, I'm expecting a depending on where this Cabrakan goes, a relatively passive laning phase towards the center of the map. Tiamat takes some time to scale up. Zeus probably gets stronger 2-3 levels earlier. Just the ability to clear that wave very easily by tossing out the shield, a couple auto attacks, your ability to fight around those mid camps. Very, very strong thanks to Chain Lightning. So the Jade Dragons might be willing to put the majority of their pressure over towards the side lanes instead. The Tartarus Titans, on the other hand, I think would very much like to fight around mid just by nature of having a Zeus.
Yeah, happily, right?
Please
They
fight here.
Love to put the pressure there. A severe lack of jungle picks available now. Erlong, Camazotz, Awelish, Bastet, everything save for the Khepri from the Dragons. Shots. And you know what? Sure, Khepri jungle could probably exist somewhere. Someone's run
Probably
it.
not.
Nobody in the SBL would run it because it would
Hopefully
absolutely lose a game. But at least 4 out of 5. Same thing on the other side, 4 out of 5. Outside of the Ardio, the Kleena, the Gilgamesh, the Daji, and the Susano. All stripped away. So we're starting to reach the, well, I would say maybe the bottom of the barrel for Assassins, except I know that Sam for Soccer likes his Thanatos, so he honestly might still be happy. He plays it whether or not it ends up getting the most performance out of it. I think actually the last triple-double in the SBL was him on Thanatos too, so there's something to hang his hat on. But it also hasn't necessarily been meta. I mean, where do you go here if you're Layers or Sam?
Well, for Sam, a couple of picks kind of stand out. The Thanatos that you've already highlighted, the Mercury is a pick he really likes to go towards, especially against these largely immobile laners, things that just have dash. Generally, he doesn't like to play Mercury when the enemy ADC has a leap, but Sonic Boom very good at catching out Lacerate or even Atlas's dash. So that's one spot. I could also potentially see a Thor pick. We've seen it a little bit more so in the EU SCC, but I've become a Thor believer again because that damage output is incredibly high. Global presence, always going to be valuable to your squad. Osiris locked in for the Tartarus Titans. That very well could be your jungle selection. Layers likes his auto attackers. Mannequin Scepter works with him just like everybody else. Clears out those camps, gets involved very early, something we saw from Rapio earlier on as well. I'm not mad about it. Also acts as flex, keep the Jade Dragons guessing.
Now this is something I'm not sure if y'all remember. Did we get a triple-double last year?
Will use this
I'm kind of
power
hung up on that. I
wisely.
can't remember who it did.
It was Sam.
So I'm going to... Sam, last year?
Yeah, right?
The Thanatos that I'm thinking of was Phase 2 in Season 7,
Is
which was... We're in
oh,
9?
we're in season
yeah.
9.
So that was a little while ago.
Time's a flat
I'll
circle.
figure that one out for myself a little bit later. Just to stem my curiosity. There we go. Yamoja Circuit is going to be the option here. And I think this is going to be one of the first Circuit jungles we've gotten to see in the SBL. I think we last week saw her thrown into the support role. Maybe that was an SCC game.
We saw
where
Panatom
she's
once or twice.
like trying to pick it up. Yeah, Panatom. So with a lot of these changes more recently, she definitely feels a lot better in the jungle.
Yeah, better in the jungle than support, but I would argue about the same in the jungle as she was previously. It just limits the types of builds you can go towards. You're going to do more damage to squishies than you once did if you go full damage now as opposed to previously. But you are doing way less overall if you decide to go down that bruiser tree. So if this is slated for Sam for Soccer in the jungle, expect him to just go for a very high scaling style of build. Going to make him very squishy, but a massive threat to the likes of Zeus or even potentially... I'm still assuming Osiris in the jungle just because I know that SOT likes to play this nemesis in the soul lane.
Yeah, he does.
So you're lacking a little bit in terms of confirmable CC on the side of the Tartarus Titans. It's really Lord of the Afterlife and whatever Atlas is bringing your way, the pull in, the grab, and such. But other than that, Petrify is conditional CC.
Yep.
Zeus is only applying a slow.
Yep.
Osiris is conditional CC as long as you can keep them inside that tether for the entire duration, which is easier said than done a lot of the time. Otherwise, just slows from him, and then Nemesis slows as well. I think we might see some wing blades on the side of the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, a nice, easy pickup for them to try and balance things out. You had mentioned this, the Nemesis we've seen a lot recently going into the solo lane. And with that matching up, I guess against this Cabrakan more than likely, it feels like one that, I mean, I want to say Solo Ritual won't be finding a whole ton of pressure in, but also he was still really successful on this last week. How do you feel about that matchup?
If I'm
It's
Cabrakan
weird.
into Nemesis, I'm feeling pretty good because the shield is just about never going to find value up against Cabrakan. Multiple ways to stun her out of that. You don't really have any way as Nemesis to deal with the tremors in lane either, so the first couple of levels going to be on easy street for Cabrakan over there. And even if you were to take Osiris into the matchup, let's play devil's advocate and say that it is could potentially go over towards the soul lane. Similarly, doesn't really have the best ways to stop tremors. Similarly, isn't going to be able to find the majority of his damage. Both of these guys, Nemesis and Osiris, operating as consistent DPS auto attackers, whereas Kabrakan's damage comes in bursts. It comes in waves.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit you with my 1, I'm going to hit you with my 2, I'm going to walk away, rinse, repeat. You're not really standing in and giving the boxing match over as the picks on the Tartarus Titans would like.
They're going to be really great late, but not necessarily getting as much done maybe in the lane phase, whichever one ends up going over there. Keep your eyes on that Nemesis, because it has been something Solar Troll is like. You called for Wing Blades. I'm going to second that. I feel like that is
Lots of
something
slows.
that is going to show up at some point for the Dragons here. I guess we'll just find out in game number 1 as we go over to J-Mac and Trelly to run us through it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Jade Dragons, Tartarus Titans here for our second set of the day on this Sunday of SMITE. But it's going to be SOT taking the Osiris to the solo lane this time around. Won't see the Assassin solo matchup there. Maybe fortunate for SOT not having to run that Nemesis. It's J-Mac, it's Trelly, it's Doug here in game number 1 of our set. They were calling for Wing Blades, on the side of the Dragons here with how many slows. Well, Mike's going to go ahead and jump the gun here and instead pick up a sprint first relic.
I'm just looking at Panda Cat once again going to this Uller pick, man. He does not seem to really care about what everyone else is picking at the moment. He's just going to say, I want to put Bluestone and Transcendence on this Uller, and I'm going to go into this lane and try to 1v1 people. How many times have we seen it? It's happened a lot, and it's probably going to continue happening until someone bans it away from him.
Would not be surprised. I mean, at this point, he's run it for, I think, every single game but one so far in Season 9, and even then it was like an Artemis pick for him. So Panda Cat has not had to show his hand as far as his Hunter role is concerned, and hey, if it's working, if it's getting him wins, I don't see any reason why he would need to change it out.
I would say so as well. And looking at this mid lane build, it looks like Paul opting to go for the Sands of Time, not going for that Eye of the Jungle that we've seen a bit on the Zeus. That sort of tanky-esque style of play where you have a little bit of a hybrid build going, not normally that double flat pen. This time, though, just trying to get as much damage online as early. Love that from the Zeus, but also it's going to be very difficult to survive this amount of dive that the Jade Dragons have.
Jade Dragons right now with pressure in lane, thanks to the help of this Uller Yamoja combo. Up against the Atlas Medusa, should bring a lot of pressure towards the Titans, especially now on this wave, since the Titans were able to get there first. We'll see Panda Cat throw out some damage towards Cyclone Spin. And kind of similar to Panda Cat on this Uller, Aurora himself has also not had to have shown a lot of his hand. This is a pick that he really loved during that kickoff tournament.
That's true. The Atlas, the Tartarus Titans specifically, were the first ones that really showed some value in this pick, as well as the Leviathan. So just showing a little bit of respect to the Atlas, how much not only just damage and confirm he can bring, but also just hard CC. Atlas, one of the easiest characters to get some lockdown on right now, especially in that duo lane. But also, looking at SOT's build, when you're against a magical character, you really don't want to go that Berserker start. Looks like he's itemizing into a Cudgel. Could be, that Frostbound. We've even seen Blackthorn being picked up once again, or even the Runeforged Hammer. So a couple different options there. We'll have to see which one he itemizes into, knowing that he does not against a physical character right now as Sam Berserker takes a hefty chunk of damage from that detonate.
Paul's already starting to swing here. Level 3 on the Zeus. Layers wants a little bit more. Does manage to clip that slice and dice at the tail end. A dash into the duo lane. Panda Cat will leap on out, and a Riptide from PBM isn't enough to separate out the Jade Dragons duo from the Titans. But Cyclone Spin, unrelenting on this Medusa, still wants to get some extra poke out there. But he'll put it over on a PBM this time.
And now that purple buff has spawned in here, I would not be surprised if we see some sort of pressure towards that buff. Obviously, they do have the Yamoja heal, but it's not going to sustain you up that much. Going to be some aggression over here in the dual or in the solo lane as well. But it looks like they are going to be able to heal up enough here with the Yamoja heal. So the purple buff safe this time. The Tartarus Titans are just going to go back for their own.
There's a blue buff invade on the side of the Tartarus Titans, taking that one away from Fine OK, so he's not going to be able to channel as many of those tremors out there as he would normally like to in that matchup. Level 5 now for SOT. Fine OK is going to need this wave before he can hit level 5. And I am interested as to where SOT will go with this Cudgel. A lot of options available to him, as you talked about earlier on. But we'll still keep our eyes over here towards the dual lane. I'm surprised it hasn't been as bloody as we would expect here. I mean, this is a devastating W key comp that the Titans have drafted up into here, and you can see Aurora with that range damage, that Astrolabe able to slow down the backs of the Dragons.
Yeah, you have a lot of poke with this Uller pick, but again, until that Transcendence is online, you don't really want to spam your abilities too freely. As we see Fine OK definitely getting the worst out of this poke matchup at the moment. Doesn't seem like either of the solo laners have went for the teleport here, so both opting to go for the beads, fearing their safety a little bit more than that freedom of being able to back whenever you want in the rotations, things of that nature. So it seems like both of them are going to have to take the long trek back when they do back up here, and I think Final K lost a big, hefty chunk of that wave just then.
We do have Blackthorn. That'll be the item here now for SOT. So just opting to go for a little bit of power, some extra CDR as well in that build. And for now, he does have a very slight XP lead over Fine OK, so we'll keep track of the solo lane throughout here. In yesterday's matchup, we'll hold on that thought. Sam goes in, finds the ultimate onto layers with a lightning storm called down by Paul. Same for Soccer, jumps into place, and it's the detonate out of the mid laner. Paul strikes first blood for the Titans.
That's the benefit of this massive damage, this massive AoE damage from Zeus. Obviously, you think, as Sam for Soccer, you think you have this great pick onto layers, no beads available, just going to CC chain. But after that lightning storm gets dropped, your whole team sort of has to separate. You don't want to stick together and get hit by chain lightning, that sort of thing. So unfortunate for Sam, that gang turns a little sour, and now you're giving Paul first blood.
Not just that, the Titans with a 1,000 gold lead, another attempted steal over here on this right side of the map. It seems like PBM Final K were able to secure a buff for their solo laner. But Jade Dragon's down 1,000 gold, with the first blood bounty being about half of that here. Seems the Tartarus Titans have been able to hold up their farm game. If you're looking at Sam right now, you just had a spill over into the mid lane. Shelly, do you try and keep that pressure up, try and put Paul down? Or if you're Sam, do you try and get some pressure in one of these other side lanes?
I mean, right there, obviously, Layers was able to survive. You didn't get any sort of relic from Paul, so I don't imagine you're trying to kill the Zeus at the moment until you can get those purification beads down. Obviously, you have a lot of lockdown with the Serket pick. It is going to be very difficult to try to survive that dive, but with the beads available and the Spear of Desolation, Sands of Time build that Paul has, just dropping Lightning Storm on yourself is going to be a solid amount of just self-peel.
I see Aurora trying to get some poke here onto Pagan, but not going to get the pull with that Gravity Well immediately right afterwards. Instead, it'll just be Paul level 7 on the Zeus. Spear of Desolation now finished up for both of the mages. Gauntlet of Thieves finished for both of the supports. So pretty much everybody, even despite the first blood, has been able to go back and pick up their first tier 3 items. SOT now in a 1v3. He does use the beads early, still holding on to that Lord of the Afterlife. Might want to use it a little bit sooner, but it's too little too late. Sam for Soccer picks up the first kill for the Jade Dragons. Layers on the run, but these Riptides out of Mike are closing in that gap. Layers has to use the blink to get out. The Dragons come up with one.
I guess SOT just thought he was a lot tankier than he was. Even with the beads and the Lord of the Afterlife, it's going to be very difficult to live against 3-4 Jade Dragons at that point. So obviously a little bit too far for the Osiris. Going to have to go back to base and losing that purification beads. Now going to have to play very careful in that lane. Sam could try to show some face over there once again if trying to put even more pressure, trying to get this Kabrakan ahead.
I felt like SOT was kind of disrespecting the damage output of the Dragons. I mean, he had the beads the whole time, used it a little bit late in the engagement, but he really held on to that ultimate until like the last second to go through. SOT maybe not expecting the damage, but it kind of felt like he was just not wanting to respect what these Dragons could do. They'll send 3 over here. An easy wall up by Fine OK means nowhere to go for the Osiris. Now I'll put another one on the board for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, that's exactly what I assumed would happen. Once those beads go down, again, if you don't have your ultimate and you don't have your beads available, Serket, one of those characters, you don't really need the ultimate to get these ganks off. Obviously, the Cobra's Kiss, that's going to be a lot of lockdown CC. It looks like the Tartarus Titans are going to pull Gold Fury here. They have a lot of damage.
Got a lot of burst. They've also got a Lightning Storm, and if need be, they can have Aurora's ultimate drop down along with it. Tartarus Titans, though, will only need the one ultimate from their mid laner. Gold Fury goes over to the Tartarus Titans, and even despite the 2 kills that the Dragons picked up in response, the Titans are still up almost 2,000 gold.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the level disparities right now. Obviously, Panda Cat's down a level. It seems like Sam is still down a level despite those 2 kills, as you said. Paul ticked over to 10 a little bit before Pagan as well, so just a little bit of a level disparity besides that solo lane. Everyone on the Tartarus Titans, their small amounts of farm are starting to climb ahead here, and now a pretty sizable gold lead, as you mentioned.
What's been going on over here in this dual lane, though? Because we didn't have anybody die on this left side of the map. You know, Panda Cat didn't have a fall early on. Mike didn't die to Aurora Cyclone, but we see that Cyclone's picked himself up almost a 1.5 level. I mean, where did all that come from, Trelly?
It just seems like keeping Panda Cat under the tower for quite some time, obviously getting the last hits on those gold, and then making sure that these mids and the Harpies are going the way of your Medusa are always going to help out here. It also seems like Aurora is sort of sitting around trying to put some extra pressure on the Panda Cat, like this, for example, making sure, even if you're going for that Harpy, I'm going to have some poke on you just in case. Not a lot of sustain on this Uller pick. You don't have the Death Toll. You have that Blue Stone build, so can't really sit in lane for as long.
Fine, okay, walks up to SOT. Will get stunned right after, and will now have to deal with his own minions. SOT going into the shield now, the round shield, second item up. Meanwhile, Fine okay. Gonna double down in that physical defense. No surprise though, I mean, look what he's going up against the jungle. 2 physical damage dealers. He's not gonna be worrying about Paul anytime soon. Gotta imagine that'd probably be a breastplate of Valor over on Fine okay though?
Yeah, I think you need the cooldown right now. Obviously, going with the Legion Helm, you don't really have that much CDR. Just your blue buff giving you that natural 10%. So I think the breastplate, probably a smart option there. But as you said, not having to worry about Paul. Look at his build. Double flat pen already completed. So if the Zeus ever does find himself near that Karakan, I think he probably will have to worry about the damage. I think Paul probably doing the most damage on the map currently with this build. Level 11 for the Zeus at 9 minutes. He's been farming pretty well as well.
Paul won't need any of the damage there. PBM, though, will. A lot of burst coming out of this mid lane mage for the Titans. Aurora will dash in and hit Sam for soccer with the charge, but Sam will be fine. He'll have that Death Bane to get himself on out. But I'm looking over at Panda Cat's build now, and I know we've been seeing almost nothing but Uller from him, but I don't recall seeing Hydra's Lament being in the build.
I think he did try that early on in the play-in tournament, the one that, you know, people said didn't count too much for anything. We might have just thought he was trying something out, but just going for the axe into the Hydra's auto and then an ability, you know, the Hydra's procs are going to start to add up here. But either way, it just seems like Panda Cat wants a ton of ability damage and a ton of burst. Not really that sort of shred build, more just like hard damage as Sam for Soccer is rotating over, but it looks like 3 Titans strong are also here, just rotating around this solo lane at the moment.
Was a 3 versus 2, got closer to 4, but Pagon never rotated over. He went back instead over to those left side mid camps. Paul will leave that fight and leave it to be now only that potential of the 3v3. But with Sam going back to base, that finishes up a Hydra's Lament for them. So both of our junglers going to the same startup here. And this is something that was talked about on the desk now, and something that we kind of expected coming to this patch notes. It's more glass cannon circuit style.
Yeah, I do like the Hydra's Lament right now on jungles. I will say it's a bit annoying when you go Hydra's on Circuit because you want to try to let the poison stack up for your passive, but then you also are saying, I want to auto-attack cancel and auto-attack reset for these Hydra's benefits. So you just have to be careful making sure you're not wasting the explosion of that Circuit poison here because you're trying to get those Hydra's procs. But at the moment, again, it looks like they are just going to back off here. Sam was sort of posturing to see if he might be able to catch a Medusa out, but at this point, going to dial back. Pagon has been consistently putting those lizards down in mid lane, just trying to get a little bit of extra farm. Obviously, right now, Paul has about a half-level lead, which is still a little bit annoying when you have just neither of you been fighting too much at this point. So Pagon just going to keep dropping those lizards, trying to pick up at least a little bit of that extra farm.
Yeah, most of that lead coming earlier on from that first blood that Paul picked up. Since then, it's been a quiet game, though. 2 kills to the Jade Dragons, both of those onto SOT. But ever since those kills on SOT, that double that happened within, what was it, like 80 seconds of each other, just because of how low the cooldown already was for SOT's ultimate, didn't even get it back up in time before it was another rotation. Speaking of SOT.
Yeah, wait a second.
What is he doing on that side of the map?
I really think SOT is trying to get the Obelisk. He's going to go pick up the Interceptor, and then they're going to go for Gold Fury. All the while, Jade Dragons obviously know where he is. That Obelisk does give vision, so they're going to pull the Pyromancer.
Roar is here. That ultimate up is that Gamma Ray Burst. Can steal away. We've seen it happen before, but it won't happen this time. Jade Dragons do secure the Pyromancer, add about 500 gold to their pockets, and keep that gold lead back at around this 1,500 mark. It has not been swinging very much here in this game. Ever since Titans took control, they've held on to it, but it's been a nice little plateau here as far as that gold lead is concerned.
Finally, the Obelisk does go the way of the Tartarus Titans. I was going to say, if SOT is going to put so much stock into rotating all the way over to steal away this Obelisk, they better be picking it up pretty consistently. It looks like Cyclone Spin is actually the one who's going to pick up this Intercept here. They know the Gold Fury is up, the Primal Fury specifically, so that's going to help with a lot of this DPS.
Going to get some extra damage out here. I mean, that Primal Fury is melting. Panda Cat already throws out the axe. The Gold Fury has been leashed back, and it's the Jade Dragons to steal it away. Pagon with the Primordial Onslaught grabs it. Cyclone Spin stuck inside the rivers, has to use that Petrified, and now it's PBM on the run. Half HP on the Emoja, and big detonate damage out of Paul. I thought maybe PBM would have been a little bit healthy after that, but no. Paul putting out some big damage, but at the end of the day, Jade Dragons They just steal that objective right from out under the Titans.
Yeah, they leashed the Gold Fury pretty perfectly to make sure that Panda Cat wasn't able to steal away, but then they forgot about the damage from Pagon. They could have just body blocked it, but at that point, I guess they trusted Paul's burst or maybe Cyclone's burst. Either way, great play by the mid laner of the Jade Dragons, able to steal that one away. Now you have the kill lead, and your gold is still not quite in favor, but that's going to help out a little bit, obviously, because you went off to a little bit of a rough patch there. Now, Primal Fury is going to go the way of the Jade Dragons and the Pyromancer as well.
Yeah, but now with both of those objectives down, Charlie, we're kind of at this state of there's not really anything up to fight for. Even if we do get a pick, where can we go? Fire Giant, kind of out of the question at this point, you know, with how even this game is. No team has some exorbitant lead over the other ones here. So where does the attention now go for the Jade Dragons to try and pull that gold lead back?
I mean, it's probably just going to be the old farm game, right? Just keep pushing your lane, keep playing for that late game. I don't think either team is too upset about just letting this get to late game level 20 status, but it does look like PBM is trying to find a possible riptide into a river. If Aurora steps up here, he could get trapped, but not a ton of damage just between him and Pagon, so don't think they're going to look for anything too aggressive again. As you mentioned, no sort of neutral objective up to fight over just yet.
Well, Sam goes in, finds the taunt, but only against Aurora that time, so the Cobra's Kiss only going to find a little bit of value, but it will disengage that team fight. Allow PBM and Pagon to try, I say that, because Aurora is standing right there and gatekeeping the middle lane. Panda will try and sneak his way through onto the other side. Throws out the axe, but doesn't find anything there. Instead, it's some damage over the wall. Does manage to hit Paul in the back of the head, and that'll kind of push this Zeus back a bit.
It seems like we still have a 5-man grouping happening for this tier 1 tower. Cyclone Spin and Panda Cat both in the mid lane at the moment, so neither of the ADCs are over there clearing that wave, sort of just collecting dust at the moment. But again, nothing really to fight over here. I don't think the Tartarus Titans are looking to dive this tier 1 tower at the moment, so another retreat and going to be going back at the moment, so no one really getting too aggressive.
I'm noticing that Paul's not going down that standard route that we've been seeing out of some of these tankier style mid lanes. It is the double flat pin, as you highlighted earlier, now into Obsidian Shard, where before we'd been seeing things like the Celestial Legion Helm, the Jade Emperor's Crown even popped up, and even that Void Stone. Do you think that at any point Paul goes into that one of those items?
I think Paul right now is trusting his positioning as Cyclone. Gonna have to dash away here, Sam for Soccer. Looking for a small gank, but again, not too much reason to step up at the moment. But yeah, I think Paul is trusting his positioning and his team to keep him safe at the moment. I mean, he's 1-0, hasn't really felt too much of that pressure. The more damage, the better. If you don't have to build hybrid, why would you? So right now, Paul feeling pretty safe, and we're about to see how much damage he can do as PBM. He's gonna have a 3-charge detonate. That's a big chunk.
That's some nice damage there out of Paul. Triple pen in the build, and not a whole lot of procs just yet the way of magical. Does have some here for PBM in the way of that Gauntlet of Thebes and that tier 1 in the Talisman tree, but doesn't have quite the numbers up there just yet. Paul level 16 on the Zeus, lost a little bit of that lead. I say that, he just ticked back over to 17 now, but hasn't quite had the same lead that he had earlier on in the game. Dual lane, still similar story. Cyclone Spin with a slight XP gap, or XP lead, I should say, over Panda Cat. And Sam for Soccer has something against Aurora right now. That's the second time we've seen him try and start a fight with an Atlas.
Well, it seems like at the moment Aurora's the only one who doesn't have a beads available, so just trying to get all of your CC on him just to be a bit annoying right now, because like you mentioned, still a couple more seconds on that Pyromancer. Gold Fury about a minute away as well, so just maybe trying to get some poke, knowing that these big objectives are going to be coming up soon. It seems like Layers is posturing around that Pyromancer just in case, because again, the Jade Dragons were the ones to confirm that one last time, and they know that it's about to spawn in.
The Jade Dragons are walking over quite a few wards in their trek over towards the Pyromancer. The SOT and Layers will spot this one out. But the question is, can one of them steal anything away here? Final K doesn't want SOT to make his way in. A good stun will hold out just long enough. SOT cannot steal that away, so another 500 gold to the Dragons. And finally, they've been able to close that little dip of a gold lead that the Tartarus Titans had earlier on. Back to a state of dead even here. Only 200 gold and even less XP up now for the Titans.
Yeah, Panda Cat just ticked over level 18 as well, so the XP lead and the gold lead pretty much even across the board here. The only small thing I'm looking at currently is that Final K is level 17 to SOT 16. So besides that, at the moment, looking extremely even as the Gold Fury finally has spawned in here, and it looks like the Jade Dragons recognize how much burn the Tartarus Titans have for this objective. They want to make sure they're at at least showing face here so they can't just do it for free, as both of the solo laners have also started to make the rotation over. SOT still at those back camps, but FineOK still over here as well.
Both of these supports have had their time to go back since hitting level 12. That's going to be a fully upgraded shell from PBM. So not even electing to finish that third item. It's going to go to a full upgrade shell. And Aurora on the other side, going for tier 2 of the new Bracer. So a little bit of extra damage around those objectives for the side of the Titans. But this is something that Aurora specifically, he has really been fond of this item ever since the end of last season.
Yeah, it seems like just a different style of using that sort of frenzy, right? You at least get movement speed. You also get the same sort of power boost, but also it acts as a ward as SOT. Gonna step up a little bit too far here.
Big stun up against SOT, but not enough follow-up damage. Jade Dragons start up a fight, but they can't clean up the kill after. Still sitting 2-1 here, 19 in. It feels like it's been almost 15 minutes since we've really seen any kill come the way in this game. The Jade Dragons will push up tier 1 tower. Should be a foregone conclusion. The boys in green here, FineOK will back away with the rest of the Dragons. They got another 500 gold for themselves, but still just a little bit down as far as the gold is concerned. Though still dead even here, and the fact that we're 19 minutes in, still sitting at this 2-1, and it's just been this very tiny little dip in the gold here. It just shows that both these teams are keeping up that efficient farming.
Yeah, it seems to me like both of these teams, again, really value their late game team fight. They're not feeling too stressed to try to force before those items get online here. But once again, it seems like we're seeing some grouping around this gold here. But the Jade Dragons are backing off here. I'm not sure the Tartarus Titans are going to care about this. I think they're going to pull this here. They know that they're retreating.
SOT is back and full health now, so it will be the Fury started up by the Tartarus Titans. PBM and FineOK are here. It's a little bit longer until the carries make it in, but it's still gonna go the way of the Titans. No one was there to stop this one out. Maybe, though, a turnaround by the Jade Dragons. Some big damage out of Pagon. FineOK goes in aggressively, finds the wall, up against 2, but it's a lightning storm dropped back. In response, Gamma Ray bursts out of the support. Throws a lot of damage through, but Aurora can't get into these fights. It's a River's Rebuke. Now SOT has to walk back out. Sam for Soccer into the midst of the fray. Cyclone Spin, though, with the Petrify, should dissuade the Dragons from going any further.
Just a great amount of peel by both squads at the moment. No team wanting to chase that one too hard. Obviously, the Fire Giant is still available, and the Jade Dragons have the health bars, but they may try to walk towards it right now, but more so maybe just looking for the neutral farm. Yeah, I don't think they're going to pull the Fire Giant 5v5 just because the Titans backed a little bit. They did obviously have some gold to spend right now as FineOK is able to finish up a Bulwark of Hope. We're seeing a Witchblade from SOT. We're seeing some big power spikes here, but the biggest for me is looking at Paul's build. Soul Reaver, Obsidian Shard, just raw damage on this Zeus.
And SOT now with a full Witchblade, leading the charge with a Roar as the Fire Giant is started up by the Titans, but it's a Roar who's losing out on so much health. He'll run back out through the pit. SOT in the midst of everybody, but Sam goes down. Paul finds the detonate in the midst of it all to finally put a second kill up now for the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, Paul again just doing so much damage. Still 2-0 right now. No sort of pressure has been put onto this Zeus. He's able to stay so far back in this fight, drop the Lightning Storm just sort of for peel and to control the spacing of how these 5v5s have been going. And then you just see the detonates from downtown that do like 500, 600 damage right now. So I really think the Jade Dragons need to get to Paul, or else he's just going to be able to free cast these fights away. He has both relics up, and Fire Giant's going to be pulled once again.
Relics and ult. Aurora will start the fire yet again. FineOK, PBM to lead the charge in for the Jade Dragons, but SOT to play gatekeeper on this side of the pit. FineOK and PBM pulled back in by the gravity pull of Aurora. Cyclone under fire, but so is Pagon as SOT is chopping away at the backline. Pagon stunned on landing at the tail end. Panda Cat jumps out, but it's a nice axe stun to hold him out for only a little while longer. Cyclone Spin finds Panda Cat. Paul gets PBM. FineOK in the middle of 5, and it's Cyclone with the double.
It's a beautiful Petrify by Cyclone Spin, making sure that Paul was able to get those kills as well. PBM tried to sort of split that fight up with the River's Rebuke, but now the whole game is on Sam for Soccer at the moment. The Fire Giant would be a huge swing for the Tartarus Titans, and Sam is going to try to wrap around here, but noticing that SOT is zoning so well, he's not even going to go for it. The Tartarus Titans are going to get that Fire Giant, probably going to pick up the Pyromancer here as well, and at this point, they're just going to be getting all the farm on the map. They have so much time to just spend this gold and think about their next siege. Look at this, tier 1, tier 1, tier 1, 3 tier 2s as well. That's a lot of gold on the map for the Tartarus Titans to pick up here.
They had a bit of a dry spell as far as the kills were concerned. About 15 minutes or so before we saw any real action kick off. A little bit of fights around these objectives. The Pyro The Gold Fury saw a little bit of action there, but now we've finally seen what the Tartarus Titans' damage output in order to secure some of these kills are. And as we push up towards these Titans, even with the gold so close together, Trelly, do you make an actual, a hard defense here at one of these tier 2s, or do you allow the Titans to push up to Phoenix before you try and make that defense?
At this point in the game, your gold lead is probably the closest it'll ever be. The Jade Dragons, if they let all of these towers go down, it's just going to climb to a point where you don't really even want to contest them at this point. So it looks like the Jade Dragons are just going to be trying to split push as much as possible. Obviously, the Tiamat minions are in right lane right now. Lizard's pushing up in that regard. Panda Cat kind of just sitting around this corner here, maybe trying to get some beads down or something like that. But no, it seems like they are going to let all of these towers fall. And again, once the Tartarus Titans back and spend all of that gold, it's going to be a huge differential in favor of the Tartarus Titans.
And where does these defenses lie for the Dragons? You're going up against this Titans team. You're staring down a Zeus and an Atlas here. What does the siege defense look like for the Dragons to try and push the Titans back?
It's going to be very difficult. I'd say right now Mike has to get a great river that just traps a few people in. Maybe even Paul. Cyclone obviously can't get out if they are trapped inside. Lairs has a lot of mobility, so probably will be able to juke around in that line. But trying to just shut down Paul, make sure, because again, you're grouped up under Phoenix. You're pretty close together. That chain lightning is going to be very detrimental if you're all grouped up together. So maybe just trying to split off the carries from the rest of the team here with a big Rivers Rebuke. But again, tier 2 towers are gone. They're going to be able to back up, spend all that gold, and now the builds aren't going to be very close.
Yeah. Tier 1 and right side goes down, and once there were 6 towers standing on the map for the Jade Dragons, now only 1 remains. Tier 2 in the solo lane is the only structure left standing between the Phoenixes and the Tartarus Titans. But Titans are taking a little bit of time before they push their way up here. Oni Fury is back up. That can give them that extra little bit of push, and it seems that the Titans will just rush that one right down. Sam is in the area, but I don't think Sam wants to risk his life to try and stop this one out. Oni Fury plus 5 structures over here to the Tartarus Titans. Talk about a massive gold influx for this one Fire Giant.
Yeah, Cyclone Spin has 2,500 gold in hand and already has that upgraded starter. He has the Silver Branch, and now he's got one more item that he's going to be able to build here before they start this siege if they want to. At the moment, they've got about a minute left on Fire Giant, so it seems like Tartarus Titans, they probably have enough time to push down that last tier 2 tower if they do group properly, but they're not too pressed at the moment. They probably just want to say, hey, we'll just get all the towers. We don't have to go into the Phoenix Siege just yet. Our lead is pretty massive at the moment as is, so I don't think they're really going to try to go for any sort of Phoenix here, but they are posturing like they'll try to pick up that last tower here just to climb that gold lead just a little bit more.
The fact that Cyclone hasn't backed yet screams to me that he's waiting for Deathbringer. He's sitting on 2,800 gold. Should go up here with this tier 2 tower that the Tartarus Titans have grouped up around. And that should be the end of the fighting. That should be the end of the use of this Fire Giant. Don't imagine the Titans continue that push in, especially with the extra golden hand that a couple of other players still have. And finally, with this Fire Giant belt wearing off in just under 10 seconds, the Titans will slow down, but only for a moment, so they can regroup back up, go for the fire, and Cyclone Spin will buy a full Deathbringer on back.
Yeah, I wouldn't have hated a push there just because of the fact that they had the benefit of the Oni minions. But obviously, right now, just going for the safe play is always going to be your better option. You have that lead. You have all these items. Again, Cyclone had 3,000 gold there, so going for a push, probably not your best option. Now he has a full Deathbringer. You're going to be shredding this Fire Giant so quickly. Zeus is going to have the best confirm on the map at the moment with that triple charge detonate. So I think they're pretty confident going into this firefight saying, hey, we have so many more items than you. We should just win this by brute force at this point. Unless, of course, the Jade Dragons group up and try to find an isolated pick before this Fire Giant even starts.
We've got a classic Paul here for a last item. Mantle of Discord as a 6th item. And then Pendulum, or the alternate timeline, I'm sorry, on the side of Paul. It's Pendulum over for Pagon here. So big if here, the Jade Dragons do manage to find a way to kill Paul, he'll have a little bit of a retry here with that alternate timeline.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the beads and Aegis for the Zeus, and I don't think they've even had been used in quite some time. So Paul, again, just sitting pretty at the back of these fights, making sure to be able to get all of his damage off, but also not take too much in return. The Fire Giant has went down, and Sam and PBM are peeking their heads in.
SOT and Paul, look at the damage coming out of this Zeus up against the Emoja. Ultimate by Aurora will be enough. The Fire Giant has already gone down just as quickly as it gets started up here. SOT leading the charge in And Pagon will get hit by that Petrify, has to use the beads to get away from the slow, but Layers will find PBM. Sam for Soccer separated from the rest of the fight. SOT still W-keying down the right side of the map. The Tartarus Titans, they've gotten their first kill so far.
Yeah, they have enough damage to get this Phoenix, and it looks like it's only a 4v5 at the moment, so the Titan probably not on the menu. Sam for Soccer is looking to probably get some relics here. He might be going for a kill, but it looks like he hasn't found an opportunity to get in.
Sam waiting for his opening. He's found Paul to the backline, but it's an immediate lightning storm in response, and Sam, he's only got 10% of his health left, and so does Fine OK and Pagon. Pagon is gone. Aurora, credit to the kill. Layers will find Fine OK, and the Tartarus Titans in game number 1 will take out the Jade Dragons to start this set. Sam tries to get in there for one final bout, but it's Layers with the double kill and the Titans with the win.
I just really don't think if you're going to let this Zeus through, you can let it go that long without putting some pressure on it. I mean, Zeus from ahead, as you just saw. Sam, by all means, had a pretty sick gank onto the Zeus, but ends up with 10% HP trying to kill this squishy, immobile target. And that's the issue right now with this pick. If you're going to let it through, you have to put pressure onto it early, because if Paul is free casting, you are losing the game.
I mean, it's why so many teams have banned this god, because they don't really know the answer to the Zeus. We can't get to him, so we might as well get rid of him. When we look in towards game 2, though, Trelly, is that just the response out of times? Do they just say, okay, well, or for the Dragons, I'm sorry, they say, oh, we couldn't kill the Zeus. Do they just ban it instead? I
would 100% recommend banning it, or at least drafting to try to shut that down, because Paul's going to take it every time because of how strong that pick is right now.
They look real strong here in game number 1. What's going to go down in game number 2? We'll find out right after this.
Well, the Titans take game number 1 here. An early set of boxing matches between the two, but you can see the gold lead really steadily climbing there for the Titans. Some fun kills that end up bouncing between the two. But Mifflin, at the end of the day, and you had kind of highlighted it, and I mentioned it during the cast, the Zeus burn on objectives really paid off for him, and it helped out a ton.
Yeah, not only the burn on objectives, I think it was the burn on
Just
Sam
the
for
burn?
Soccer. Specifically Sam for Soccer, man. Surcat just has such a poor matchup in a Zeus in this post-tank Surcat world where you can't just go down that bruiser tree, because what happened every single time Sam for Soccer decided to engage into that backline, Paul would simply hit him once, maybe twice, and he'd either fully disengage, Sam for
Kinda
Soccer
like
that is, or just simply die. It was very difficult for him to close gap into the back. And then you've got SOT on the other end, who is just blinking in. And watch him every time. He does Lord of the Afterlife. He gets into the back line. He's got the fully stacked passive. He puts on the tether, and he doesn't auto-attack. He just keeps walking in to absorb those cooldowns and create space for the rest of the team. The Jade Dragons, I just don't think their composition was geared to deal with what the Tartarus Titans were bringing.
And I think originally there was a little bit of mystique as to whether or not Solo or Troll wanted to take specifically this Nemesis, since we saw it a good chunk last week and didn't even need it, considering the amount of kills that Layers was able to put up. 2-0-6 for him, maybe stacking that a little bit more by the very end of it. A good game, I guess, is the best way to describe it. 3-0-5, you had mentioned it, Paul, I think is the damage number I want to look at. Plus, again, the farm game, 17.4k gold, just round that up to the 17.5 highest accrued in the game.
Not by a lot, though.
No, right behind
Cyclone.
him was Cyclone.
Yep, right there.
Keeping it up with him. It was 18,000 damage, though, and that one was by at least a good margin. 3,000 over Pagon, and then quite another large chunk, 7,000 over SOT. And, well, I guess 6,000 over Pandacat. So, not keeping up in terms of where Paul was. In terms of, his damage. Too much to handle from the Zeus, Mifflin. And I think I understand why he gets banned a whole ton.
Yeah, Zeus just a very consistent pick. Fits in all sorts of compositions.
Yeah.
But speaking more to the point that I was making, that Surcat is just not very good into Zeus compositions when you're just a damage dealer. 3,800 output from Sanford Soccer.
I didn't even notice that.
It is very low. And he was the only one to get kills on his team. The only one. It's tough.
That's a little disappointing.
That's happened to junglers a lot recently, though.
Is what being the only ones to get the kills, or
Yes.
not doing a lot of damage? Because
Also
so
that
far,
one.
a little bit. Yes, we'll see. Well, how they change this up in picks and bans. Jade Dragons once again going to be the first pick team. The Titans on the other side, and Mifflin. I know there's only been one ban, but so far nothing has changed. It is Erlong one more time. And I guess given Layer's history on this pick, it makes a lot of sense considering it has been powerful and potent for him.
Yeah, Layers more often than not with Erlong Shen will simply walk into the mid lane at level 2 and kill you, and that's something you generally don't want to have to deal with. The Jade Dragons certainly don't want to have to deal with that one, and we'll remove it yet again. Onus on the Jade Dragons to be the ones to adjust their own draft. The Tartarus Titans do not necessarily play anything out of pocket, nothing crazy in the initial game, so I think they could just very well go back towards that exact same style. The Jade Dragons, on the other hand, might want to pick up a jungler a little bit earlier on in the draft. I believe it was like 6, 7 total bans towards the jungle god pool throughout the entire duration of P's and B's 1, so at least get something that's a little bit more consistent for Sanford Soccer, maybe a frontline initiator, a Gilgamesh, something along those lines, could help you out a good bit.
Well, this is going to be, I think, an interesting conversation, like you said. So, in order, it was Tiamat, Uller, Kabrakan, Yamoja, Surket last time around. Not often, period, does Mike get Yamoja, let alone that far down in the draft. But the Tiamat first pick, Pagon played it well and put up some good numbers on it. But is that where you want Tiamat? I mean, she really has not been such a prime focus really for the last half of Season 8, maybe the last third of Season 8, and now going into the beginning of Season 9.
I think that Tiamat first pick has value for the exact same reason that I bring up initially, which is that you're not revealing what style of draft you're going for. It's just a plug-and-play mid-lane mage that is going to fit into the majority of your drafts.
Hey, look, it's Kabam.
Brings consistent split push potential to the entirety of the map, thanks to being able to spawn minions, just has great survivability, can act as a pinch hitter, either that backline artillery or dive in, quadrupedal stance, be a part of that front line and dive with your squad. She's not necessarily the strongest at either of those facets of her gameplay. If you want a frontline diver committed from your mid lane, Jean-Qui's out there. He does that very well. If you want committed long-range artillery damage, the Thos, the Agnes of the world, going to do that a little bit better. So I think legitimately the main strength of Tiamat is her ability to A, do both, and B, not reveal anything about your draft. Except that Tiamat is going to be in it.
Yeah, you know that immediately. And like you said last time, and she definitely is going to have 4 teammates. That one's guaranteed.
Sometimes.
But there are 4 other entities on her side of the map that cannot damage her specifically. Whether or not they provide things is going to be sometimes.
Are there no gods that can damage teammates?
I don't think so.
All right, well, there you have
Hey,
it.
you know what? I know.
Hey,
what we're
Design,
gonna do
I know you're
next
listening.
pitch. At aggro.
At aggro on Twitter. If you've got cool god ideas, that's where you're going to toss them over towards.
Oh, no, I just meant, like, just go tag him and say, make a god hurt somebody, like, hurt a friend.
There's got to be one. No, I'm sure there isn't. There's the troll potential's too high.
Yeah, and that's usually why that doesn't exist, friendly fire. I did see someone the other day on Twitter saying that that'd be a fun, like, custom game option, is to have friendly fire in the lobby.
Yeah,
so that you
mages
could, like,
would be the
hit
worst.
Each other. It wouldn't be very fun. You can see, very worth noting, I think actually your first Guerrilla interview, unaired, was with Kabam. He is not a coach. He's just hanging out back there to get things back on track for him. But Mifflin, you gleaned, I think, something out of that. Like, he's happy to be here.
Yeah, maybe I will release that on Twitter if you guys want to see an interview with somebody in the backstage. So one of our own admins, previous coach of the Jade Dragons.
It was actively while he was trying to work. It was
mad
very
at me.
funny.
He was mad at me. He had to take his headset off. I think he was like talking to his boss. I'll put it out on my Twitter, twitter.com/MifflinTV. I don't plug myself too often, so I'm happy to take one.
Yeah, I plug myself a lot, and you should still follow me. I like it. I appreciate it. It makes me feel good. And I don't have like a cool video to plug. I tweeted, I guess our fantasy drafts are there.
Yeah, that's cool.
What was the last thing? Nothing. I don't. It's just me. That's
cool too.
I guess it depends on your takes on it. But I appreciate it. I'll take it. Either way, these teams moving forward. Mifflin, I think that Paul has always been a point of contention on this team to talk about.
Point of contention or just massive boon, right?
Yeah, massive boon probably. Like it almost feels like he never brings any negatives and only brings just.
Do you have his season 8 total
positives.
KDA? I think he was up there in like the
real
30s, like up there with Shinto. Shinto's again. I keep putting out this stat because it blows my mind. 40 total KDA for World Championships. Not something that you're able to replicate very easily, unless you're Shinto, I suppose, because he's been maintaining it so far this season.
All right, if we go just strictly regular season for KDA, Paul was a 5.2.
That's good.
He was number 2 on the list because guess what? Yeah, it was Shinto with a 5.6, a little above him. And so he doesn't die a whole ton. He had 83 deaths all year.
Only 83?
And that's 83 deaths in 80 regular season games. He averaged just slightly more than 1 death a game, which is scary to think about having to go up against. We're back in picks and bans, though. It's the Dragons, it's the Titans. And again, Dragons' first pick, Erlang Shin, Zeus, Camazotz. So they do opt to trade out the Khepri this time around.
And take over this land.
Camazotz, Ardio, Kleena, Gilgamesh, the same 3 from the Titans, and Tiamat first pick one more time for the Dragons.
So everything that I said earlier when we were like hypothesizing what would be the case if Tiamat was locked in for the Jade Dragons. Remember when I was like, she can be artillery, she can be a front line, but she's not really revealing too much about your draft. Still true here for the Jade Dragons, taking it for themselves in the first slot. But with the ban shift up, I believe it was Khepri in that third slot in the Jade Dragons Phase 1. Well, it's still available, and the Tartarus Titans snatch it up for themselves immediately, affording themselves a safety net in these team fights. If they want to, they can pick up something like the Cthulhu. I've seen now the Jade Dragons play the Cthulhu plus Khepri essential team fight, and it's scary because you just got a giant dude in the front of a fight taking aggro from legitimately everybody, knocking them up consistently, healing your teammates, and well, you can just summon them back, you know? Special summon them with Scarab's Blessing.
I use Monster Reborn to bring back
I'm glad you actually know Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that was the extent of mine.
Oh, yeah. Finch used to make fun of me all the time because he'd come into the green room and I'd be sitting there playing Duel Links in like the hour or two before the broadcast kicked off. And so now we land in this position. Medusa locked in there. A glimpse into Aurora's mind in my eyes. Maybe, the discussion for the Titans as a whole. This was Atlas Medusa last time when Khepri was banned. But if Khepri's available, Aurora values that more than what the Atlas can bring. So having that res available for them seems to be pretty solid. Uller being hovered by the Dragons. We'll see if it gets locked in. Panda Cat, again, has been playing. He's just been playing the one god. And no one's pushing him onto anything different so far. We'll see if anything changes there. Osiris does get locked in, and that is going to be a strip away from the Titans. And talk about someone I didn't expect to see. I don't even know where that ban rate. Who banned Jing Wei? I'd have to go back and look for that. She gets locked in here, Mifflin. That is a change-up.
Yeah, especially considering how early it was locked in. If you want Jing Wei, you can get Jing Wei 5th pick. Realistically, just about every single time. We've seen her banned
The
a little
Leviathans
bit.
banned
The
her.
Leviathans will ban it out. They don't want you playing safe, I suppose. But the Osiris may be the more interesting of those two picks in that he is honestly acting as a quadrary. What's the tertiary is 3? What's 4?
Yeah, quad. That's a good question.
Quad something ban because the Osiris 4 SOT on the other side was dominant in game 1, just creating all that space. So now for the Jade Dragons, can use it as flex potential. Could go into the jungle, could go into solo. We've seen Sam play it. Quaternary. We've seen Fine play it. Has great ability to separate some of these team fights and will dissuade the Titans from looking towards any more healing in their draft thanks to the 100% reduction that Lord of the Afterlife gives you.
Well, now we're going to catch up on the bans. Daji, Susano, banned away by the Titans. Bastet, and the Nemesis. Once again, not a good day to be a jungler in this set. You're losing Kleena, Gilgamesh, Daji, Susano, Nemesis, Bastet, Camazotz, and Erlongshan. That is 8 jungle picks off the board. Osiris, for all we know, might be what Sam for Soccer wants to play over there. And hey, that thing you called earlier.
Nice.
Just showing how big the brain is for Mifflin. Cthulhu locked in. And again, frightening concept of Cthulhu getting revived by a Khepri on the front line.
Yeah, so this is a lane, or not even a lane, a team composition that is so annoying to deal with because generally the answer to Cthulhu is twofold. You've got 2 options.
Kill him.
You either kill him, and that's going to take a
long time.
large commitment, a pretty good time commitment, as well as a build commitment. We're going to see likely a couple of kin size if you really want to be able to deal with him in an ordinary amount of time. Or you straight up ignore him and try and dive on your own. But Khepri effectively removes one of those options. You can no longer just straight up kill the Cthulhu. So if you decide to dive past Cthulhu, his high CC output makes it very hard for your own backline, not frontline, notwithstanding. You're not worried about them. That's not Cthulhu's job. To follow up with damage. It becomes very, very difficult. He separates the team fight that well. This is a combo, Khepri and Cthulhu together, that is incredibly difficult to deal with. And I'm not legitimately sure what the entire answer is besides just survive up against that matchup. You just got to survive the descent into madness.
Well, we'll see if they can do it. Achilles locked in at the very bottom. Mifflin, someone who's been kind of flirting around. I think we've seen a couple of Achilles bans and, hovers, things like that. Aphrodite got locked in, though. So who cares about that? Not only did Aphrodite get locked in, it's either Achilles, Osiris, or Afro support here. And something's making me lean towards the Aphrodite. Do you have an inkling of what this team comp is trying to do for the Dragons?
I'm leaning towards Achilles support. Just having that roaming execute to deal with the Khepri revive is something that I think PBM very much likes to do. It's something that we've seen in the previous set as well. PBM just very much likes to follow around the enemy support and make sure that they're not able to do exactly what it is that they want. You've got decent laning phase as well. Honestly, pretty deceptive kill pressure in Achilles Jingwei lane. Immediately the shield bash stun into a knockup. Knockups are undRable CC, so you are locked down for a fair amount of time. And up against a Medusa who is likely going to put herself in melee range when she decides to commit to a fight, Achilles has got some decent counter matchup there.
I don't want to pop your bubble, but I'm going to.
Oh.
If Achilles is over there, between Aphrodite and Osiris, who's solo and who's jungle? I guess Osiris jungle
Osiris
and then
jungle.
Aphrodite solo up against Cthulhu?
That's my guess, yeah.
And You want to commit to that, is what you're saying
Why
to
are
me.
you-
I'm
why
not
are you-
trying to
why are you
make
questioning me?
I'm just giving you the option to
Well, I don't like
deviate a little
I don't
bit
like
away.
Aphrodite in support, man. Stop.
I
don't come
I'm not
after
saying
me.
you have to like Aphrodite in support.
Well, it's
I'm
starting
just
to
saying,
sound like that's what you're saying.
Given the rest of the comp,
Okay.
is that what you want to lean on?
That's what I said, Gore.
Okay, you know
and
what?
I'm sticking with it, man.
With it. It was an wheelish picked up at the very end. I guess we'll get to see if Layers can play it to the max. Jingwei is going to have a tough time up against that one. We'll see if everybody else does here, Mifflin. It's an interesting draft from the Dragons, to say the least. I guess we'll get to find out where everything ends as we get into game number 2. Titans up 1-0. And remember, last time they played months and months and months ago, the Titans were able to win. We'll see if they can close it out in 2, or if the Dragons' surprising comp is going to bring us to 3 in game number 2.
Well, an Aphrodite thrown out here with a Tiamat already picked in. Where in the world is this one going to go, Charlie? We'll have to find out as we jump here into game number 2. And it's going to be the Aphrodite support.
Oh, yeah.
On the side of PVM. We'll throw those 2 warriors over onto the right side of the map for the Dragons. Now, we've seen Aphro support in the past. Not very recently in the past, I should at least add onto there. When it comes down to Afro versus Achilles support, is there a preference that you would have had here, Trelly?
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious that it was going to be the Afro just because, you know, Mike just likes that style of play. As Mifflin just yells. Looks like San Francisco going to take a lot of damage here. I was just messing with Miff. Obviously, it was a toss-up there, but I do think the Afro support as Sam.
Sam, one more auto. Paul will find it. Tartarus Titans. They strike early this time. It took them like 5 minutes to get anything going in game 1, but here in game number 2, Paul is going to start this one off right for the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, I would argue after last game, giving Paul first blood is the last person you want right now to have a strong lead, especially into this Tiamat. You're going to outrange Tiamat pretty much the whole game as the Sloth, and obviously with first blood, you're going to get that Sands of Time, you're going to get that Divine Ruin or Spear of the Magus, Spear of Desolation. Any one of those items right now with a lead is going to be extremely difficult to deal with how much damage output this Sloth has. But again, touching on this Afro support a little bit here, if you are able to kiss Sam for Soccer, and then you have that sort of engage the back off, is going to do a good amount of damage as well, just, you know, staying kissed to them as well. So I do like the little bit of application it has, but as Miff touched on a bit on the desk, it would have been nice having that Achilles execute surrounding this Kepri.
It's going to be a while before Fine OK gets involved in some of these early game team fights. Layers with no mana fighting up against Sam for Soccer. Pagon getting pelted with damage from Paul. There's still Archer minions there. Paul doesn't care about the farm. He wants the player damage out here to start this one out. There's going to be a conduit gem out of Pagon in the midline. Meanwhile, Sands of Time on the side for Paul. Both going with completely different builds here. This conduit gem into the Lost Artifact versus Sands of Time into initial flat pen for Paul.
I will say, Layers going the Mannequin Scepter on the
Sam?
Awelix is pretty interesting here. Sam for Soccer trying to steal away that speed buff before Layers catches onto it. But now he's going to have to run here because obviously Layers caught up.
And Layers instead will steal the buff right back away. Now Sam is on the run, but Layers expended almost all of his mana on that return back just to keep him pushed away. SOT will rejoin the fight, but Sam inside that passive is doing just fine. Fine OK, dashes in aggressive and needs a little bit more damage, but he doesn't find it up against Layers. Sam walking right back up, a fight for the blue buff. But with Layers so low down, it's going to come down to SOT on his own to secure his own buff.
And he does get it as the purple buff is being stolen away on the other side of the map. Fine, okay, taking a little bit of damage here from SOT. Look at this start he opted to go. Obviously, we've seen this Legion Helm Vampiric Shroud start, but this time around the Shroud into what I can only assume is going to be that Breastplate, lots of cooldown, but not really as much power. In fact, no power at all on Breastplate, so it's going to be a little bit of different start for the Cthulhu, just trying to live, maybe get Descend into Madness up a little bit earlier as opposed to no cooldown start with that Legion Helm. But again, I'm not going to say questioning it, but I will see a dash in from SOT as this Mannequin Scepter from Awelix. You know, you never really see too much, but it looks like Layers still looking for the gang.
EBM knocked up and knocked down. It's Layers coming up with another kill, or with a kill here, second one now for the side of the Tartarus Titans. But even with that first blood bounty, the Titans haven't been able to amass much of a lead here. Final K used the beads off the knockup from SOT, and that will be a win for the solo lane Guardian. And kind of going back to these solo builds here, we talked a little bit about SOTs. Check out Final K going for a Bluestone Pendant first item.
Yeah, just trying to get that ability damage online, trying to match some of the clear from SOT, obviously, and he did not opt to get a relic, actually, so the Cthulhu able to back and pick up a teleport if he wanted, but does not want to. Just going to get the beads instead, fearing maybe a little bit of pressure from Sam for Soccer. That gank potential is always going to be there. This Osiris can get active early, obviously, so it does look like SOT is going to go for the beads on that back and just kind of stick around at the moment as Panicat just sits there tanking up the full wave, trying to get all of the last hits there. Looks like he actually might be building into either the Devo's Gauntlets or the Bloodforge start.
I'm sorry, I got a nice little laugh there. Panicat was able to secure his Naga camp there, but when he used that first ability, both Aurora and Cyclone walked into it trying to pick up the flower, and they just swapped places, both of them missing it entirely. A little fun, cheeky interactions over here in this duo lane. But Aurora hasn't left this lane just yet, making sure that Cyclone Spin has all the pressure in the world. But I mean, it's Medusa versus Jingwei. It's not like Medusa should ever lose a 1v1 boxing match. It's not like Medusa should ever lose pressure. And that's now forced Mike to have to rotate back over.
Yeah, just trying to make sure this purple buff isn't stolen away again. Obviously, with the Aphrodite here, you have an extra level of safety with that immunity and the ultimate. Obviously, the heals, it's going to be a lot more difficult to steal away this purple buff with Mike here. So Mike just doing a good job to say, hey, don't worry, Panda. I'm going to let you get this purple buff, and I'm going to help you out. Just being a great support. That's what you want to see out of your support, helping you whenever you need help. And that's what's going to happen here. Now, looking back at this mid lane here, SOT might try to steal away that Scorpion. Not enough, but now, Sam for Soccer taking a lot of damage.
Dash in by SOT. Descent into Madness is here. He'll use it to get some damage up against Sam. Needs a little bit more. The swipe, not quite enough damage. That passive of the Osiris giving him just a little bit of that extra tankiness in. And now Pagon squaring up to SOT. Final K squaring off with Layers and Paul. Final Judgment canceled by the Thoth on the back end of the fight. And nobody will go down here off the initial startup by SOT. The Titans should be able to walk away with this. Final K is not going to let it go for free, though.
Yeah, Aurora is here, probably trying to look for an abduct, but Sam is going to blink in here, and now Aurora might be in some trouble.
Aurora dashes out, Layers is back, Sam at the front line, should be able to find a double stun here, gets the beads out of SOT, that leaves Aurora all by themselves. Layers throws out the only bit of damage that he had left with his mana. It's going to be Aurora paying for the sins of his team on that engage.
Yeah, just recognizing the Scarab's blessing was not going to be enough to get him out, but it looks like the Jade Dragons are not done as SOT gets stunned out and he is gone.
SOT going down. First time this game, the Jade Dragons now tie up the kill count 2-2, and the gold as well will go right back up. Same across the board for that golden XP. Only barely favoring the Titans, but Sam just really loves being on this side of the map, doesn't he?
Yeah, at the moment right now, the Osiris is obviously going to be a bit of a bully to a Wheelix in the jungle, and Sam is doing exactly what he needs to, just invading the speed buff now. Going to wrap around Layers here. Doesn't know he's there. Might have the confirm, but after that, going to have to jump away.
Big stun. Sam's got the ult over the wall, but he misses the root on landing, and Layers will be fine under that tier 1 tower, and he's got backup because SOT is making his way through. A blink for blink here. Layers will get away from danger, and Final K will have to use the ultimate to get himself out of the danger of that tier 1.
Yeah, clutch little blink there by Layers, making sure to keep him alive there as SOT probably wants to try to steal away this blue buff, but also can't really posture that way. Mike trying to confirm the purple buff. That is not going to go the way of the Jade Dragons, and I don't think they're going to have too much damage here. Again, Pandacat did opt to go for that Devo's Glove start, but it looks like they're going to go for this kill.
Big knock up there by Pandacat, but Aurora is undeterred. He'll take a lot of damage, but with some backup now from Layers on the way through, and a turnaround by Cyclone Spin, Pandacat will make it out, but PBM will not. A big stone and a big ultimate out of Cyclone puts another one up for the Titans.
Yeah, unfortunate for Mike, a little bit early on that ult, probably felt like it needed to, but maybe just the shell, and then holding that Afro ult for the Petrify, maybe enough to get him out. But at that point, I think you're just a little bit worried at how much damage this Crusher Medusa is able to output, obviously. So, unfortunate there. We're going to get a kill for Cyclone Spin, and now Panda gets his dash cut here. He's going to have to expend the ult just to get away.
Airstrike, but Aurora's ready on the tail end. Gets the beads, a dash in from Cyclone, and the Viper's shots are ringing true. Put another one on the board for the carry of the Tartarus Titans, but he should go down here. Big revive out of Aurora, but it's a stun landing right back in. Sam will chase down Cyclone, and there's nowhere for the Snakes to go. He got a little bit of that mana back, but the minions are not going to save Cyclone Spin's life, and neither is anybody in the jungle. Pagon finds Aurora.
It looks like Paul does have the final judgment available, but doesn't think there's any kill potential any longer. Obviously does have the Divine Ruin, so can't help a little bit of that healing here from the Aphrodite, but just going to sit at tower line. There's 3 Jade Dragons at the moment looking at this Thoth, and I don't think he really wants to push up just for this wave.
Paul level 11 on this thought. They'll back up, take the long way back into the tier 1 tower. PBM and Pagon, they're moving around to this right-hand side. This is where a lot of the action has been for the Jade Dragons, is up in Layers and SOT's jungle. Blue buff invade. Will that one go the way of the Dragons? No, it will not. SOT, real good on making sure to make sure he's able to keep his blue buff. Those are the words I'm looking for.
I'm looking at Layers, who was just level 7 a second ago, to Sam for Soccer's 10. So 3 level deficit right now, 2. But at the moment, Sam for Soccer making sure to take away a large amount of this Awilix's farm. This is sort of where Awilix is able to flourish. You have that early game aggression, but when you're against a tanky warrior building into Stone Cutting Sword and a soon-to-be possibly Berserker Shield, it's going to be a lot of defense and pretty much just being all of your farm bullied away.
PBM has to use the ult from the Gravity Surge out of Layers. That'll be an ult for ult trade, jungle for support. But with the amount of CDR that Layers has built, that one should be up just a little bit quicker than Mike will be able to have his Undying Love. And speaking on that, I mean, look at what PBM is itemized into first. Magical Defense as a first item with that Heart Ward Amulet, and then has just now been able to start going in towards that helmet, tier 2 of that one, just now picked up.
Yeah, probably trying to get a Lotus Crown, going to help his team a lot if he does get those heals off, obviously. And again, I have to look at this Jingwei's itemization. The Devo's gloves are finally finished. Going into the Balance Blade, possibly an Executioner. We've seen the kin size even this early on, which is a little bit weird, but sometimes people seem to get the value out of it against a Cthulhu. I could see it being a little bit useful if the SOT does rotate all the way over. But at the moment, this Jingwei is pretty much just going to sit at that tower line. You aren't going to see Panda Cat post up past that little mark in the tower because right now, your build just does not match a Medusa. You really, as you mentioned, cannot trade auto attacks at the moment.
And this is a completely different look as far as God playstyle out of Panda Cat. We go from Ullr, the god of jump in, hit your 3 ability combo, and they're pretty much dead, to a god that's got to wait for such a long period of time, wait for these real late game team fights when these items start coming online, when these crits start ringing true. Paul will be under fire by Sam. The tether has not gone away. Paul will be canceling that final judgment. He's got to use the beads. A revive is there. Paul will get out, but he doesn't go very far. Sam for Soccer will chase it out and pick up another kill for the Jade Dragons. Layers has a wall to get over this time around. And Aurora and SOT to surround them through. SOT dives into the middle of all 4, descends into madness to chase out the fight. Final K and Pagon both falling low, but so is Cyclone. A nice body block, though, by SOT. That makes sure to get the carry out, and Layers has gone back in. You might want to get yourself on out of there, buddy, because SOT is on the run in. He'll pick up 1, make it a double.
It looks like SOT is continuing this chase onto Pagon. Not enough damage as the Tornado is going to deter SOT from chasing a little bit further. That was a rotation by Cyclone Spin, which almost helped out a ton. Obviously, it was a little bit too much damage right now. The Jade Dragons were able to get the better end of that, I would say. But at the moment, 2 still down. Final K is dead. Now Sam for Soccer is dead. And the farm, that's going to be very important. Not really what you got with the kills, the farm after the fact. Again, Layers is still behind, but living in that instance is going to be huge for this Awilix. He almost died. It was a beautiful feather step just to get him out at the very last second. And again, Panda Cat did not rotate over. He was able to just get that farm. He did go for the chin size second item, so just getting a bunch of shred as well as stealing away that red buff. So a lot of farm for the ADC of the Jade Dragons.
Panda Cat needed it there. He was starting to fall behind Cyclone Spin from that earlier kill, or kills, I should say, that Cyclone was able to pick up at the beginning of this game. But Flower on this left side, we'll go over to Cyclone Spin as we take a look at the 2 obelisks here. It's about a 1-stack advantage on the side of the Jade Dragons, who will now try and push the small window that they've been given. Pyromancer started up by Final K and Sam, and this one should be easy goings here for the Jade Dragons. They'll be able to grab that objective. And now what do the Tartarus Titans respond with? Gold Fury is back up, but Trelly, do the Titans really have a window to try and start this objective?
At the moment, it looks like Aurora is just going to be going for the obelisk, so don't really think they're going to be trying to pull that just yet. They do have the final judgment available, which definitely the best confirm on the map at the moment, but still not feeling too confident in trying to steal that one away as the gold lead finally is in the hands of the Jade Dragons at the moment, and it looks like it's pretty even at the moment though. Still, try to climb back up again, being able to not rotate as Panda Cat just gets eviscerated. He is gone.
He got caught looking. Look at the relics. Beads popped during that one, so right as he went up to try and get that dash away. Panda Cat turned around, faced Cyclone Spin, and then faced his own death at that point through. Tartarus Titans now 7-5 on the kills, 3 of those on the back of their carry. Cyclone Spin starting this game off strong for the Titans. Maybe the Jade Dragons can respond with a kill over towards SOT. Goes up and descends into madness, but Sam for Soccer will crash right back in with an ult of his own. But since they put so many resources on this right side of the map, the Tartarus Titans can now go for that Gold Fury. They'll take it down, and SOT gets to live.
Yeah, that's going to be a great trade there. They are able to get SOT's ult, I suppose, but not in execute threshold, so weren't able to find that kill. Tartarus Titans, after Cyclone Spin finds that solo kill, then are able to pull the Gold Fury and get that. That's going to be a great trade for them. Always happy to make that one. Whenever you see that pressure in the solo lane, your solo laner usually calls out, hey, I got 2 here. You guys can probably pull that. And pull that they do. Gold Fury once again going down for the Tartarus Titans. Going to get some neutral farm here, the Jade Dragons, but still not going to match what they just lost there in that engagement.
It's going to be a contagion pickup by Aurora's second item to deal with some of that sustain that PBM will give towards the rest of the team. Meanwhile, it is just only the other Divine Ruin as far as anti-heal is concerned for the Titans, but against an Aphrodite, you do still need some. I'm definitely not trying to say that you don't need anti-heal. But it feels like out of Afro, and especially Afro support, maybe you don't need quite as much.
Yeah, I would say though you have the Thoth, you have the Divine Ruin. Obviously, at the moment, you have the Acid Spray as well from Medusa, but a Wheelix, who I was gonna say, does not have the Brawler's Beatstick at the moment. Only single target damage more often than not, unless you're hitting a lot with that Wheelix 3. So at the moment, not really getting so much from that avenue of your anti-heal, but with Thoth, with Paul applying it to pretty much everyone on the Jade Dragons, I would say Aurora definitely needs some cooldown now. So it looks like a Genji's Guard could be the next option here. And that's going to help him out a ton because the more Scarab's Blessings you have, if you can get 2 off in a fight, that's going to be incredibly useful. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult, but still, you're going to need some cooldown on this Khepri specifically. But they do have a fair bit of anti-heal, as you were touching on.
Should be able to find some with this Kasari, depending which route Aurora decides to go with it. As the rest of the Tartarus Titans group up, Pyro is down, Gold Fury is down, so there's no major objective aside from Fire Giant that they probably won't want to fight over just yet. Instead, SOT will continue to leave his mark across the board here as PBM rotates in through that jungle. SOT and Aurora spot him out, but not much to be gained from there. PBM is going for a rather puzzling, maybe, third item is the way I want to put it here, going for a damage option.
Looks like a Chronos Pendant, I would say. Honestly, Chronos Pendant is one of those items that doesn't even give 20% CDR because of the resets. It gives even more than that. So if you are going to itemize into it, I think on these mage supports, you know, we used to see the Hell every once in a while, things like that. You really do get a lot of value out of that Chronos Pendant. So if you are just going to pick up one item, it's going to help you out a ton. I would say PBM's going the right direction here, wanting to do a little bit more with those back-offs as well. The Lovebird's always going to benefit from a little bit of power, so I think PBM is just trying to be a little bit more impactful in these fights. Obviously right now, 0-2, 3 assists though, so just trying to get more heals, more stuns, more back-offs, that sort of thing. I think PBM just wants that cooldown.
Well, it seems like a lot of people want some cooldown here. 30% on the side of Layers with his third item picked up here. And SOT, we didn't see the emblem for the longest time. Horrific Emblem kind of fell to the wayside as the season kind of turned through, but we've been starting to see it rise its way back here. This emblem of increasing peril has now been locked in for SOT. How do you feel about this item?
At the moment, just trying to force out a sprint if they are going to go for it, but knowing that there are no sprints on the Jade Dragon, just making sure to slow the whole team, descend into madness at right before a Horrific Emblem is popped, that's going to be pretty devastating. So I would say as long as you're using it very effectively, as Paul fires off a Final Judgment, Pagon very weak.
Paul just shotgunned that for no reason other than because I can is what it felt like there. And with 30% cooldown into his build, he'll have that one back up very soon. But Pagon got to eat the full force of a fully charged Final Judgment now out of Paul, and that's going to force a regrouping here by the Dragons. And right as this Pyromancer spawns, the Titans are already on it. They'll take it down. And it could be a Tier 1 tower that's going up next with 3 still standing for the Jade Dragons in the mid Tier 1. They will back away as the full force of the Titans have now collapsed into this mid. Tier 1 tower goes down. Fine, okay. Has to use the beats to get out, but SOT up in the Descent of Madness, just creating some space for the team.
Yeah, it looks like the Jade Dragons are going to chase this one down, and they have the damage to do so. Tartarus Titans are going to have to back up here. They bit off a little bit more than they could chew.
Fine, okay, still rather healthy. Can chase this one out and will do so for now. Still attached to PBM, but Paul peppering in these shots from a long range will make sure the Dragons don't have much more response than to just heal themselves up. But now we could be seeing a tier 1 trade out here. Jade Dragons, they're all fairly healthy. Cyclone Spin may not be so healthy. Ultimate from Sam, though, is off the mark. And that's a nice call for Cyclone and Aurora to be able to back themselves away.
My eyes are on this Primal Fury spawn. It is almost up at the moment, and the Tartarus Titans have not backed yet. It looks like Aurora is going to be the only one who can really get here in time, and the Jade Dragons are set up to pull this perfectly, and they are going to take it. It looks like all the Tartarus Titans had to back at a pretty unopportune time. It looks like they were trying to start that team fight specifically for this Primal Fury spawn. Obviously, they dove a little bit too far. Paul was able to output some damage, so they couldn't chase it too hard, but Primal Fury going to go the way of the Jade Dragon. Still looking at a relatively even game, with the Fire Giant being the only neutral objective on the map at the moment.
I mean, we're 20 minutes in, 5-7, definitely more kills than we saw in game 1 at this point, but we're in the exact same status that it was beforehand. It was a fight around the Fire Giant that went south for the Dragons in game 1. And it's a fight around the Fire Giant that could be the deciding factor to break this game open here in game number 2. Now that we do get a look here at Polar Bear Mike's build, he's got the fully upgraded shell. Did also pick up that Chronos pen in here. How big is he picking up a full shell now for PBM? How much is that going to help impact these fights for the Dragons?
I mean, at the moment right now, it's very difficult to dive into the Jade Dragons, as it's just adding another level of, hey, I've got the Heart Ward Aura for you. I've got this Lotus Crown healing for whoever I'm deciding to kiss to right now. It's going to be Panda Cat. So if you are going to try to kill my ADC, I've got this Fortified Shell. I've got lots of protections, movement speed. I can stun you out. There's a lot of different avenues for PBM to be this just unstoppable peeling force for his carries right now. So I think PBM just trying to make sure that this late game Jingwei gets online. And at the moment, he does have that Silver Branch bow, but still needing probably an upgrade on that Leather Cow before it's starting to sprunk a lot of damage.
Yeah, Sam did even go for a Shogun's Kasari. So if in the event that Panda and Sam are standing in the same vicinity, an extra little boost of damage and attack speed, I should say, more than anything, over to the carry. Jade Dragons will focus their target to a Roar and chunk him down about a third of his HP bar. But the Titans have responded very quickly to this rotation in. All 5 members of the Chaos side team have already grouped back up, but PBM with this Afro able to keep himself and his allies nice and healthy as this team fight continues to peter out.
Yeah, it looks like Paul still just trying to put out as much damage as possible, get those Divine Ruin procs, but still, this Tier 1 tower has not fallen down yet. It is going to start to be looked at here as SOT takes a little bit of damage, and it's going to be displaced by the knockup. Still, though, I've never seen such a brawl over just one Tier 1 tower. They really do not want to let this one fall. Obviously, again, there's no real objective to fight over unless the Jade Dragons are trying to make a risky Fire Giant play. So they're just trying to poke out as much as they can, but the sustain on both sides is starting to be shown here, just sitting under this tower, grouping up, and not really, giving an inch.
So we spent, what, like 2 minutes here at this Tier 1 tower, and nothing gained here on the side of the Dragons. The Titans were able to farm up and drop the Scepter at the very least here, give that one over to Layers. Tier 1 tower still stands for the Titans, and a Scorpion going down right after. So, after all of that, Jade Dragons, well, I can't say they came up with nothing. They did get a Gold Fury after that last fight, but then, after standing around that Tier 1 tower, not much else to be gained there. Pagon does hit level 20 during all of that, so he can go back and pick up his starter item, that Gem of Focus, now picked up for the mid laner. Paul, not quite yet to that 20, so not quite yet on a starter upgrade.
Yeah, PBM also got that Sentinel's Embrace, giving even more aura to his team, as well as Panda Cat getting the upgraded Cow. So just a lot of big upgrades on the side of the Jade Dragons. Not to say there wasn't some power spikes for everyone, of course, because looking over at Cyclone Spin has that Deathbringer now. Of course, Aurora opting to go for the Compassion upgrade and the Shoguns, so that's going to be buffing his squad as well. Still, though, this 5v5 team fight at the Fire Giant is what we're going to be looking at again. Final Judgment. Still, Paul's ultimate going to be the best confirm, as the Pyromancer is finally spawning in here and looked at by the Tartarus Titans.
And will be taken down by the Tartarus Titans. That one goes quickly to the boys on the Chaos team. Fire Giant still standing. We haven't had a real 5v5 group up just yet. We've had 3v3s and then One dies, another one funnels in. So waiting for this first big Fire Giant fight, this first real group up by these two teams. We still remain here at this 700-ish gold lead that the Tartarus Titans have. Hasn't changed much. You can see this entire game has been dead even across the board because the highest point that the Titans have gotten to has been 1,500 gold.
Yeah, interestingly, the one team fight that we really saw, as you were mentioning, was sort of at speed buff. It wasn't even like a fight over objective. SOT starting to get shredded. The kin size is proccing.
And SOT is out.
Yeah, he is able to make it out of there. I was going to say Panda Cat's build finally online, but they're not going to let him back. Pagon is going to stop that back. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jade Dragons try to dive this even further.
There's no teleport for SOT. He's going to have to make a long walk back if he can even get back at this point. Tier 1 tower goes down to the Dragons, and we're starting to see that shred you were mentioning with this Jing Wei between that Silver Branch and that Kin Sai, which is always the topic of conversation against these Cthulhus. The Jade Dragons, they'll start up the Fire Giant, but I'm not sure they're really trying to commit on here. Maybe seeing if they can pull anybody from the Titans forward. It's Layers hooked on to Sam for Soccer. The Titans are finally regrouping themselves, but PBM is getting absolutely blasted by the damage that Paul is throwing out. Paul even goes forward, finds the root on the Fine OK, but SOT, he's back. Fine OK might be in danger here, will be able to dash away, and SOT up into the Sense of Madness. A Frenzy in response, a triple knockup though from SOT. Pagon in danger, pulled back in, and has to leap his way on out, but SOT is waiting with open arms on the tail end of the fight. It will be swiped down. Pagon is already out.
But Sambra Soccer was in the backline trying to shred through too much defense. It looks like Layers is going to pick that one up as the siege continues. They don't care about Fire Giant. They're going for the end.
PBM goes down. Panda Cat, the only survivor of the Jade Dragons. They weren't able to take down Layers. They were not able to kill SOT. And with a tier 2 tower and 4 players gone, Trelly, the Tartarus Titans could just walk in here and potentially end this game. It's only Panda Cat on the defense.
Panda Cat has the Odysseus bow, a lot of AoE damage. They have to think about this. If Panda Cat is able to get some big damage off, it's going to be close.
Big crits up against Cyclone, but Panda Cat is gone. It's 15 seconds until Pagon is back. The Tartarus Titans in one team fight at a dead even state have turned this one around, taken game 2 and taken the set from the Dragons. Just like that.
It really seemed like SOT was able to just 4-man knockup, go into that Descent into Madness, and just put so much damage out. After Cyclone Spin, it's a huge Petrify. The chase was just all they really needed, a huge team fight. You don't even need the Fire Giant at that point, just run it down right lane.
In game number 1, it was at least a fight for the Fire Giant, and then they were able to get a team fight after and win. This time around, the Titans didn't care about the Fire. They just started a fight all their own, and we were sitting at, what was it, 700 gold? Like a minute ago that was dividing these two teams? One team fight. The Tartarus Titans are able to take this game away and take this set. 2-0 over the Jade Dragons. Will take it to the desk, and they can break down that set.
close this one out into the second 2-0 Mifflin that we get of the week. The Dragons were involved in both of them. This time, maybe not the one on the receiving end that they wanted to be, but it is the case. That game goes back and forth relatively, a little bit of a lead here and there, bounce between the two teams, realistically until the 20-minute mark, and then finally the Titans just kind of slam them and win.
Yeah, that seems to be the generalized thread, right? It feels like in the early game, everybody's feeling very tanky in the current meta, and then there's like a weird inflection point generally around the 20-minute mark where people are becoming very squishy, very susceptible to that dive. There was some funny interactions, right? Sanford Soccer blinking in, just straight up dying for first blood. Somehow still 3 levels up on layers throughout the duration of like the early game, first 10 or so minutes, despite layers not having fallen down a single time. But outside of that, once everybody caught back up and remained neutral until that 20-minute mark, a couple dances around the Fire Giant, a couple dances around these neutral objectives really did separate the game. Namely, got to talk about Paul. It's a Tartarus Titans game. When are we not talking about Paul? The damage output from him, incredibly potent. Felt like they were struggling, the Jade Dragons, that is, to close gap, find the opportunity to step up without having already been dropped down to 70, 60, 50% by Paul. And then, namely, Cyclone Spin. I feel like he was just slamming this game.
Yeah.
Gets a solo kill up against Panda Cat. Still remains even, but once he got to those team fights, it felt like Cyclone Spin just didn't care. He was just playing wild, aggressive, and putting out a ton of damage.
A lot of good separation in these team fights as well. You could see the Cthulhu presence maybe causing a little more trouble than the draft was built for. They just had nothing to answer for the most part. Try and lock down Solo or Troll. When you get a double kill like that on a Cthulhu and the rest of your team is having a lot of fun, yeah, you're going to be in control pretty well. But, I mean, you can look at it here. I mean, 13 minutes in, 5 to 6 overall. There's the solo kill you had mentioned. But the gold lead was still even for a majority of it. So good farm from the Dragons despite some of those kills not going their way. It was really at the very end, but 5-1 and 2. Cyclone Spin looks really good. 2-1 and 7 there for Layers, so even though he wasn't getting all of the kills, hands-on a lot on pretty much every single one that they could make happen.
Setting up.
I don't know, though. Only 6,300 damage.
Okay,
you gotta balance
you
it.
Pick one. Are we gassing or are we not gassing, all right? I can't yes and if you flip-flop.
No, you gotta yes and, but do both.
Yeah, so, not that much damage.
Like,
but,
he's great, but...
super good. Well, that's not yes and. But is literally the opposite.
Well, but it was a yes and...
you
yeah,
can't
you're
yes
right.
and but.
You're right. That doesn't necessarily link together. No, he played really well, and again, like you said, facilitated a lot of things and made things interesting for the Titans. They get the 2-0 here, and I believe we even have Layers standing by for a post-game interview, so we can even talk to him about how this one feels. So, which do you feel the assist number, because you were able to put this just to carry on our conversation, your assists or your damage is what we should be looking at here?
Probably assists, because I did a whole lot of nothing that last game.
A whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, that last game was like really rough for me. I wasn't able to do really much of anything that I couldn't really do anything that game. It was kind of tough.
What inspired the Wheelish pick? Because I know like Jing Wei can self knock up, but it felt like there was going to be maybe some more difficulty for you to get that going.
It's good into Tiamat, and I could pull Jing Wei as well. I was able to pull Tiamat at that last fight actually to get her beads, and then I was able to dive. That was like really all I did the whole game. But yeah, that was just a rough game for me.
Hey, but realistically, at the end, you guys still got the win, right? So that's what matters. I want to ask you, not about something y'all did, but about the Aphrodite on the other side. Did that, like, confuse you, or did that just give you a target?
We haven't really played against an Afro support, so we're a little off guard. I mean, like, I didn't even realize there was an Afro support because I didn't go anti-heal right away. I had to sell it late. I was like, is he really going to heal that much? Because it heals off power now, and Afro supports don't have a lot of power. It's like, is he really going to heal that much? And I was like, all right, I'll still get it, whatever. And I got it late, so...
Well, despite your self-proclaimed not great performance, you guys still get the 2-0. You've come in. This is like the first full, like, Phase 1 official game, I guess, for SBL this year. How's the team feeling, with Saw coming in and just the way that the phase has started?
We're feeling really refreshed. We're feeling really good. We're playing well, and we've been scrimming a lot, and we've been getting together really well. So I think we're going to be pretty good. I'm
excited to see what you guys have to offer throughout the year. Thanks for your time, man. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nathan?
Yeah, scram.
He doesn't feel too great about that game. I still think, again, the assist column showcases that he was there. And
great performance.
Pretty much exactly what you need at the very end, which was he got the beads, he got the Tiamat, And that was the fight that mattered the most because it won the game. We can take a peek at the schedule here for what we have yet to see. And it is only one more set that's going on after this. The Leviathans taking on the Warriors. All of them were just hanging out in the break room. It's not actually often. Normally we see the teams like separate, but they were just vibing together.
Yeah, they're having a good time. It's the reigning world champions against the Oni Warriors who are trying to prove the fact that they belong here in the SPL. I believe them, though. I mean, the performances have already been pretty strong.
They did the proving part already. That was earlier this year.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
No, that was the earning.
Well, that was earning back, but proving they belong in here and not like SCC by beating SCC teams to earn their spot in the SPL. Isn't that how that works?
Yes, and I agree.
But also, you think that they're fighting to like showcase that they belong in the SPL here?
Yes. Well, I mean, when you're one of the only teams that were like up on the chopping block, I think there is a little bit of added weight on you to prove that you belong and that you are going to make some strides to improve throughout the year. But I've got faith in the Oni Warriors.
Now, I'm excited to see what they have to offer. Leviathans, Warriors, it's going to be coming up next. We're going to get that one set up, get the players in the booths, all right after this.